Hi, friends. It's Christian again, coming back to you in our second week of Lent. So happy to be able to come to you and to provide a moment for something to reflect on and think about. Just want to remind you that you can always go to the Lenten page where we have a scripture text that we've picked out for each of the weeks that you can reflect on, or you can choose to memorize. In terms of the practices of the church, memorization of scripture was very important in the ancient world, and it was thought to be something that helped to renovate the heart and the mind. And this week we've included a prayer from the 14th and 15th century English mystic, Julian of Norwich. She was a woman who was struck by a very serious illness, and that became a moment by which God spoke to her through visions and actually through some direct speech, at least according to her. And her experience actually reminds you that God can use anything and can speak through anything. And the vision that she received was that God's love not only upholds the world, it will always uphold the world. So that's a great comfort. So this week, the word I wanted to offer to you to think about in relation to Lent has really to do with the idea of grace for the journey, and the sense that grace takes time. In terms of the name Lent, the word Lent, in ancient Greek and in other cultures, the word that usually is used to mark out the season that we call Lent in English actually oftentimes simply means 40. It simply refers to the 40 days. But in English, Lent is actually shorthand for lengthening, and it's meant to draw people who engage and lean into Lent to the fact that we're living in a time when the days are lengthening, right? So it's springtime. And so there's a connection then to nature and the cycles of nature and the slow process by which the world is sort of transforming. And obviously living in Minnesota, we can only be so happy to see longer days and more sunlight. But there's a couple of, I think, theological or spiritual nuggets that we want to maybe focus in on in that regard. And one is that the truth that for those days to lengthen, that's not something that you and I can do. You and I, deep down, may want more sunshine. We may want the days to be longer and warmer, but it's not really up to us. It's up to something greater. It's up to the movement of the stars and the sun and the axis of the earth. And thinking about the journey of Lent and the hope that this will be a journey in which we grow in grace, or we turn to God more, or we're transformed more. Lent reminds us to be patient and to remember that it's not up to us. It's not up to you, and it's not up to me, in a sense, to grow. It's really up to God, and that God is actually interested in growing us. And I think the second thing that's really interesting in terms of thinking about Lent has to do with the fact that it's 40 days. It takes a while, right? The journey takes time. Growing takes time. Being changed takes time. Being healed takes time. So I want to encourage you to think about this as a journey, as a process in which day by day you're being offered the opportunity to turn more resolutely towards God. And if you take up certain practices, some of us are going to be praying more, we're going to be using Lenten devotionals, or maybe you're going to, I don't know if you give something up, or you take something on, or you decide to do nothing. Remember that you engage in those practices not because they add to your salvation, and also not because they're techniques whereby you can make yourself grow, really what they're supposed to be about are opportunities to put yourself in a position or a posture whereby God can break into your life in a new way. And that breaking in can happen dramatically, it can happen slowly, and it could even happen in silence, as we were reminded this last Sunday from the sermon. So take all these things in. I hope that these words are encouraging to you and that you know that God is with you during this time. God bless you.